Hey everyone, it's me, Sean Capri, and welcome to a very special episode of We the Gamercast. It's Gears of War 4 review time. I'm here with Andrew Semichek, our fearless leader from WeTheNerdy.com. How are you doing tonight? Andrew, I never do this intro in front of people.
I know, it's weird. It's kind of weird being on the other end of it.
You're like, why does he throw his hands up in the air? Does he always do that?
Hey.
Answer?
You're waving around like you just don't care.
Yes, I do. I always throw up my hands, even when I'm all by myself. I go like, hey! Anyway, we are here today. Today is launch day when people are hearing this. Not for you, Andrew. You've had this game for a little bit. It's launch day for Gears of War. It is Tuesday, October 11th. Coming into this Gears of War game, what's your history with the Gears of War series? Are you a noob or are you a total Gears of 4 nerd?
Oh, I'm somewhere in the middle, I guess, because I played the first three games. Played until completion. Played a lot of multiplayer in the first one. Second one didn't play a lot of. Played a lot more Horde in the second one.
Nice.
Third one, did the co-op story through all three. Three is my favorite by far.
Okay.
Just because I like the fact that it kind of
Maria.
That train scene. I can't. I was always second co-op player. I always wanted to play as Dom, so I three hit home too much.
Oh man, that's a weird thing. I don't know if anybody really wants to play as Dom. So regarding this, you're coming in at a different angle.
Played a lot of the multiplayer in 3 as well.
Yeah.
Never played Judgment. Never read any of the books or anything outside of that source material. But yeah, I mean, it was one of my favorite series on the Xbox 360. Coming into the game, I really wasn't super hyped until like the last 2 months when they
me too.
Coverage. I was impressed by the Xbox or the E3 demo last year, kind of changing the pace of the game and giving us a little bit more of a survival horror aspect than we had seen in the first 3 games, and kind of being impressed by the fact that we were kind of having a new chapter, and it wasn't necessarily, the locusts have somehow returned, and Marcus has to figure out a way to stop everybody. So it's kind of like a fresh take on everything.
So what is the game about? What is Gears? Guys, I actually have no idea. This is awesome. My copy arrived early, but I won't dive into it until a little later this week. Tell me, what is Gears of War 4? Gears of 4 about? I'm just going to roll with that. Gears of 4.
Basically, Gears of War 4 is... you start this game as, or in reality, you start the game for new people. You start as a precursor. You kind of get the gist of what happened in the first 3 games through the wars and everything that happened with the Locust, and even with other people as well before the evacuation, whatever the emergence day.
E-Day.
Yep. And you do that, but you kind of start as JD, who's Marcus Phoenix's son. He's kind of on the outs from the rest of the world. The COG have kind of become this supreme entity where they kind of have everybody housed in a single colony to preserve humanity, since there's so little people left after the locusts were eliminated in 3.
Right.
So you kind of go into that. Then you find out that there's this other thing called the Swarm that's kind of coming up, snatching people out they're outside the overall community. They're called outsiders. Basically, you're in one of the areas, the outsiders, or the Swarm comes in, takes a bunch of the outsiders, and it's up to you to kind of find out what these beings are, who they are, and why they're taking people, and what they're doing with them.
It sort of sounds a little bit like Mass Effect here, with maybe the Collectors, kind of like, I'm imagining like a insect kind of race, like a Starship Troopers / Mass Effect. I don't know. That doesn't really matter. Let's get into cool kind of premise. I am glad that they're kind of stepping away from the Locust. I was getting a little tired of the same old, even though they started exploding with gooey stuff as the series went on. So we have the story moving on. How has the gameplay sort of progressed from the previous 3 into here? Like, this is a series that has defined third-person action cover-based type of gameplay. Same sort of deal with Gears of War 4, I'm assuming.
Yeah, pretty much. You're pretty much dealing with the same control scheme. A couple different tweaks here and there. You now have the ability to, when you're in cover, if there's a swarm enemy in front of you on the other side of the cover, you can pull them over and knife them.
Nice.
You can also do the leap over and kick them. They can do that to you too. I know that was implemented in 3, but it's a lot more proficient here in 4.
Sure. So the knife is kind of like the new way of because they always up in the ante with the chainsaw bayonet of like just the brutality of chopping
Yeah.
somebody in half with the chainsaw on the end of your freaking gun. So now you've got a knife. Is there anything else that this game does to kind of just up that brutality a little bit?
Not really. I mean, you're pretty
Yeah.
much dealing with the same. They actually, for to an extent, they've kind of almost toned it down a little. They actually
Interesting.
they have a maturity filter in the actual game itself where you can actually take off all of the gore and vulgarity in the
Wow.
game itself. So I don't know why, because if you're not gonna have a 10-year-old play this game. So I really don't understand why you would take the gore out of it. But that's in there. Yeah, I mean, really, they don't. There's not a lot more brutality in terms of like the fatality kills and everything. You have your
Right.
traditional curb stomp, chainsaw kills, etc. Um, so there's
They've toned it down just through
yeah, it's
basic
just a
curb
bit, yeah,
stomping. Yeah, you're
yeah.
friendly old murder.
It's very reminiscent of Gears of War 1 in that way, where you had a lot. There was a lot of viscerality to it, but it wasn't as over the top as 3 was. Where 3
Right.
was just like everything's popping, everything's bleeding, everything's dying.
Okay, so let's talk about the enemies themselves. These swarm, these people who are these insect kind of race, I guess, that is different from the locusts. How are you feeling, kind of going through this game, chopping these guys? Like, do you hate them as much as the locusts? Are they a good kind of collection of villains for you to go after?
Well, to not go into spoiler territory, no.
Okay,
Well, because there's two different enemies you fight. There is the swarm, and there's also what's called the DDs. The DDs are a robotic race that was created by Commander Jin, who's now running the whole COG. Basically, is the president of the human race.
right.
She has this whole robot army that kind of keeps everybody in line and makes sure they're all kind of in check. So there's these robots that there's different levels of robots, of course, but they are there to keep everybody in line. If anybody's kind of caught outside, they try to wrangle them back in or use force if necessary. So you're kind of facing the swarm is the heart of the story, but there's also the DDs as well. They all kind of play the same way. Although the cool thing with the DDs is a lot of them are suicidal. So if they know they're about to die, they're going to run into your group and try to explode to kind of cause that group damage effect.
Right, like a classic kamikaze kind
Yeah.
of thing. What about the visuals overall? Like, is this kind of a system seller type of deal for the Xbox One? Because Gears, like for me, Gears 1 was one of the first games that I played in HD. Period. I'll always remember that first moment I fired it up and went like, I can't believe what I'm even looking at. I don't know if
Yeah.
we'll ever have that kind of moment again, or maybe this does come close. I'm not sure.
Well, Gears of War actually was the game that got me to buy HD TV because I remember
Nice.
originally playing it on a old 27-inch Sony Bravia set, and then
Classic.
yep. And I remember looking at that game and going, "Man, this game is not. It looks great, but I want to make it look better." And I got my first HD TV for that, and I never looked back. In terms of visuals, the game looks amazing.
Yeah.
The vistas, everything looks super sharp, super clean. Unreal 4 is being used really well in the game.
Nice.
The only real caveat I have is I feel like the characters themselves aren't as detailed as they should be.
Gotcha.
JD himself kind of looks like Marcus if you de-aged him and kind of smush his face against the wall. um, that's literally when I first saw his face, I was like, that's kind of really, really weird and awkward. But he's also, because Anya was his mom, so I don't know why I think they kind of did one of those like cheap Microsoft face swapping things and kind of
Nice.
just put their faces together, and they were like, this is what it looked like. But other than that, like Dell, JD's best friend, his hair looks phenomenal. Like it's like a little afro, but it's like you can see all the points of like little hair curls and everything.
Cool.
There's a lot of detail. There's a lot of really kind of jaw dropping moments you'll see because there's a lot you'll see like in terms of like these electrical storms that kind of come out to play
Right.
in the game, and they just look phenomenal when you're actually kind of running through them, and you really kind of get a sense of where you are when you're actually looking at it. So definitely, if it's a game you want to show somebody to buy an Xbox One, that's definitely something you would want to do.
Awesome. What about the new cast of characters? Like, what are your opinions on JD himself and like his buddies going around here? Do you like playing as them, or like what are your thoughts on that?
No, honestly, I one of the weaker points is that they're very bland, in my
Right.
opinion. JD is a very one-dimensional character. Not that, and people will say, "Well, Marcus was just an angry person." I get that, but there's also a mystery to Marcus in terms of like why he was in prison when you first see him. All that.
Yeah.
There's a sense of that mystery here because you're trying to find out they were originally in the COG. Him and Dell were in the COG. They left the COG for reasons that we don't. I haven't necessarily found out yet. I just, for full disclosure, I'm at Act 5 at this point. I haven't fully beat the game, but I have enough. I played enough of the game now. I put about 10 or 12 hours into it to really give it an honest opinion.
For sure.
But you know, really, the JD's like, yeah, he's a very vanilla character, very kind of bland. He tries to make jokes. The jokes they don't hit. They're very flat. Dell has some personality. He has, you don't really know. At least I don't know his backstory yet or who his parentage is. I think I know, but again, I don't know for sure. But he has like little quips here and there that are actually funny. But really, him and the third main character in the story, Kate, they're very generic characters. They very kind of have these really shitty jokes, and they really don't hit the mark that And granted, the characters were never really the biggest thing about Gears. It was always more about the gameplay. But
right,
these characters just don't resonate with me at all. And they're supposed to be younger. They're supposed to be more agile. They really just don't feel like they are any better than basically just kind of putting Marcus and his crew back in. Because at least Cole and Bear and all them, they kind of had different personalities and they kind of all worked well together. These guys just feel they're very generic and they're trying to make jokes. You're kind of just sitting there rolling your eyes, like, really, like, this joke is 20 years old at this point. Nobody's going to really laugh at this.
Yeah, it sounds like compared to the previous series where like every character was very, very fleshed out. They all had a backstory. These now we're getting into kind of like interchangeable, almost like red shirt Star Trek kind of people. Like it doesn't even matter who they are or what their names are. It's just like you needed 4 people in the party kind of deal.
Exactly.
Right.
And like really, like the one of the characters that has the most depth is Marcus. Not even just because of us knowing his backstory, but because he's the one that kind of has the best lines. Like, for right now, like, he's the one... There was a scene in the game, no real spoilers, it's out there, where the DDs go and destroy his tomato plants, and he literally starts flipping out, like, they broke my fucking tomato plants! And, like, that's the only line that's really gotten me laugh, or kind of really care at all, because,
right.
Marcus is there, he's already grizzly, he kind of already knows what these guys are doing. He's just kind of trying. He's like the Han Solo almost from Episode 7.
Yep.
But he actually just kind of carries. I feel like he carries a team more. And when he's in the game, he adds a level of character that you don't see when it's just the other 3 characters that are there.
Real quick, we're gonna talk about kind of like broad level your favorite maybe 3 things that you have about Gears of War. And then I'm going to ask you a little bit about your least favorite things too. So, because I know just talking to you offline a little bit where you kind of land on this, but I'd like to get kind of a general sense now that we know what the game is all about and how it all kind of it fits together. Like where are you at with some of the highlights? Like what are some of your favorite parts of the game?
Some of my favorite parts, I'd have to say the weapon variety in terms of the beginning aspects of the game. You kind of get a lot more weapon choices and the weapons are a lot more unique because you have the DD's weapons, you have the Swarm's weapons, you also have your standard COG issue weapons. That's one of them. The visuals are definitely there too.
Yeah.
From what I've also seen too, and just kind of playing around with it a little bit, the all-in multiplayer in terms of you can actually have character customization now, so you can actually make your character kind of look different, his weapons look different, all that. That's really kind of a unique aspect as well, just in terms of just the overall. And really, that's really the best.
That's about as good as it gets.
Yeah,
okay, so
let's
let's get into it here because I know very early on you turned it on and you sent me a message. You're like, uh-oh. So let's get into maybe some of more of the meat and potatoes of your overall thoughts on this game and get into what struck you as some of the weaker sides of Gears of War 4.
Well, just for starters, the story's bland.
Gotcha.
It's very kind of hit or miss. The first whole act is basically a tutorial on how to do Horde mode. And I'm one of those proponents of, if I want to play Horde mode, I want to play Horde mode in the mode that it's there. I don't want to have Horde mode force-fed into me in the campaign. And that's exactly what it is.
Yep.
And I thought it was bad in the first act, but then there's actually was it Act 3, where you also have another Horde like setup where like they actually have a countdown timer and everything, and you actually have this thing called the Replicator, which basically just builds whatever you want it to build based on the amount of energy you have collecting to it. So it's to a point where it's okay in a sense, but at the same time, it's like you could take out those pieces there, put bigger other battles in there, and you'd be fine. I don't need to know what Horde mode is to have it part of the story. I don't need to have that in there.
What else? Bland. What about characters? What are some of the other things that kind of like hit you and you're like, this isn't quite what I was hoping it was going to be?
Well, the game, when everybody kind of talked in the press, is that the game was supposed to go more back to its roots, and it very much feels like it's a huge step back from Gears of War 3. It's not an evolution of the series. It's very much a sidestep with a kick in the dick back to the Gears of War 1.
Whoa.
Yeah. And it's really sad because you know, Gears of War 3 had a lot more open-endedness. They kind of allowed you to have a little more flexibility in terms of where you can move and where you could attack enemies at.
Right.
You're basically getting funneled through point by point by point in the game. Well, granted, there are some areas and there are some set pieces that are different. Like they have a scene where you're fighting a giant airplane, and you're doing a couple other things that are different and unique, but they're really not in the game that much, and it's very much kind of like the Uncharted 4 issue that we had earlier this year, where they kind of showed off all the best elements of it before the game was launched. They don't necessarily do that in this case, but there's not enough in there to substantially differentiate it from the other Gears games. And I hate the fact that we have a whole new level of technology, and I know the game is prettier, but there should also be an element there where you can expand the map, you can make it a lot more flexible, and where you should be able to kind of go in and go, okay, where do I want to go in this situation? Where can I see, destructible environments? Because there are pieces of the environments that are destructible, but that's basically just a cover. And there's a couple times where you can hit something and it'll cause an effect, but it's never apparent. You don't necessarily know if that's the case, and half the time you try to do anything with it, you're just shooting into a wall that's just, kind of doing that burn damage for a second and going away. So there's never any, if you're going to go one way, go balls to the wall, sacrifice a little bit more of the rendering and make it look more destructible. Kind of go the Red Faction route, because in that case, you're making it a lot more challenging, not just for yourself, but for the enemies, for the Swarm to go against you, for the DDs to go against you, because now you're kind of having to create cover, and you're having to create an element of a tactical ability to the game where you don't necessarily have to just run and gun and kind of just pop and shot or whatever. And it's just not there.
Right.
And, there are some highs in the game that are great. The Act 4 was really, kind of the best act they did. But you kind of just eye roll because there's just elements of the story too where, you have these characters that are just like, oh, come on, really? Like, you really have to do this? Yeah. And there's all this bland mixed in with these really good features it's something where the Coalition, as a new dev, I think looked at Gears of War 1, remade that, and then said, well, let's just make that with different characters and kind of add some different elements here and there, but they didn't really push themselves to the limit that they could have.
The limit! Yeah. That's the point of no return. Okay, we're going to wrap things up here. Give me your kind of overall final thoughts. We're going to stamp a score on this thing as well. Make this an official review for Gears of War 4 overall. Kind of the last little paragraph of a review. What are your final closing thoughts on Gears?
That really, Gears of War 4 had all the potential to be the game of the year, but unfortunately for me, it was just my biggest disappointment this year by far.
Wow.
The multiplayer may be great, the horde mode may be great, but I'm not coming into this to play that a lot.
Right.
I'm coming in this to play it for the story and the campaign, and that just has left me with a very bad taste in my mouth and me wondering if I want to invest in Gears of War 5 when it does come out. A lot of the promises they made really weren't there. There's no survival horror. Everything kind of just, like I said, everything falls flat. It's really at the end of the day, this game falls flat. If you want to get a game for the game for a system seller, by all means, or for just to kind of say, hey, look, this is what the system can do, by all means, this game is for you. But if you want a game that actually has a coherent story that's paced well and actually makes you care about the characters, this game is not it.
Well said. I think everybody and their dog is trying it out for themselves regardless, not to marginalize anybody's review, but this game has so much hype behind it. And I know I love these types of conversations because I wanted to get a perspective of kind of where you were weighting your score there, what you kind of put as most important. And it sounds like story, character development, and so I'm glad I got to talk to you a little bit about where you're kind of hoping the game would be and where it hit and where it missed. So, if you're able to, a final score on the We the Nerdy scale.
On the We the Nerdy scale, we're looking at about a 65 out of 100 or a 6.5 out of 10.
Perfect. All right. Well, Andrew Semachek, everybody can follow him on the Twitter at Semachek, ASEM as in mother, ICEK. God, that is hard.
That's what she said.
On the Twitter. Good Lord. I am Sean Capri. That's Sean like Connery Capri, like the pants. Follow us on the Twitter. Find this video on YouTube, youtube.com/WeTheNerdy, and visit WeTheNerdy.com every single day for more reviews, opinion pieces. I'll probably write up something about the NX at some point. I'm also on If We Ran Nintendo with Bobby Pauls. That's at youtube.com/Nintendo Guru. It's also on WeTheNerdy.com. And We The Gamercast, this show, every Monday on iTunes and Google Play, and WeTheNerdy.com. So I don't know how I normally end this. Oh wait, I remember. Jason!
Jason! Jason! Jason! Jason! Stop! Stop!